Good afternoon, this is Dr. Story. Just checking in with my video blog. This is www.blogging-md.com. I'm a family physician that is addressing some controversial issues. Currently this is video number 3 on influenza vaccine and the influenza virus. Please see my previous 2 videos. First, which is a disclaimer as far as conflicts of interest. The second has to do with influenza virus and what makes it unique. I'd like to address today the problems that come with the flu virus, and what I'd mostly like to convince you of is that it's not the common cold. Many illnesses go around this time of year. The common cold is a common name given to several hundred viruses that are commonly transmitted and make people miserable. What's unique about or different about the influenza is that it doesn't just cause symptoms, it causes actual damage to your tissues all throughout the respiratory tract. The second issue with influenza is it also suppresses your cortisol level, which is a stress hormone that God gave your body to be able to adjust to stresses, particularly to illnesses. The greatest problem with influenza is not with the virus itself, but what comes after. What I mean by that is that people develop secondary infections, most commonly pneumonia. And the pneumonia, which is caused by a bacteria, is actually what causes people to be hospitalized, and actually is the most common cause of influenza-related death. In the United States, every year, there are many tens of thousands of hospitalizations related to influenza, and in a bad year, 30 to 40,000 people die of influenza-related illnesses, particularly, again, pneumonia. When it comes to influenza, the greatest difficulty in actually talking to people and trying to convince them of the importance of addressing it and planning ahead for the season is the variability of the season. Most people remember previous seasons and how the season might be light or might be a couple of days of an illness without too much concern, and so there can be a laid-back approach that many people bring to say, well, what's the big deal? As you may remember from my last video presentation, the influenza virus is unique in that it mutates, and that mutation can bring on a huge change in how it appears to our immune system. It can also bring on a huge change in how virulent it is, which means how damaging it is to our body. So there are some years, and it's hard to anticipate those years, where different strains will circulate, and other years where it will actually be a very similar strain and our body will handle it like it's something that's already seen before. When it comes to these severe changes, these mutations that occur, it's a rare occurrence, but we think that it's a coming possibility. We look back in history and recognize that in the 20th century there's been 3 major pandemics that have not just caused tens of thousands of influenza-related deaths, but actually millions. And that's the one that most people tend to remember is the Spanish influenza in the 1910s, which was quite a blow to the United States at that time. And that was interesting in that it didn't just cause influenza-related illness in the young and the old, which is more common, but it actually took the life of young, healthy people, which always comes as a surprise when you think about it. In a more recent memory, we recognize that there are some new types of influenza that have been circulating. You may recall the avian bird flu that occurred in I think in around 2004. Might remember, as I do, all the pictures of people in Asia walking around with masks on. Thankfully, that virus that mutated was a virus that was not terribly contagious, and thankfully so, because people that contracted it had a 50-fold increase in the risk of dying of influenza-related illness. More recently, we've had the swine flu in 2009, which was quite the opposite. It was extremely contagious, but it was not very virulent. One exception to that was pregnant women, and surprisingly the swine flu which didn't seem to bother many healthy people, was extremely toxic and virulent to pregnant women. I even recall seeing several pregnant women that we had grave concern with. Thankfully they lived, but one had a significant illness related to the swine flu. Influenza is hard to prepare for. It mutates and changes year to year. It's also hard to convince people that it's worth paying attention to, but it does cause significant illness and even death, particularly in certain vulnerable populations. I'm going to be talking about vaccination related to influenza, both the pros and the cons, because it has both, and it's a discussion worth having. I'll address that in my next video blog. Again, this is Dr. Story, www.blogging-md.com. I appreciate your comments and questions. Thank you.